Thank you very much. Um, I wanted to start because I recognize that it's just not AGers and it's just not people who belong to St. Luke's who will be watching and experiencing this. But we have to assume that her family and that Mary's family and friends are indeed present in some very real way
Yes.
to what we are doing this morning. And so I thought we would just begin with Ashley's announcement, just so it 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 sets the scene.
Um, I think some of you have already heard this, because I announced it from the pulpit the Sunday after Mary died, but I'll just share it again because I think it brings everyone such comfort when they hear it.
Ashley is now speaking.
Oh, yes, yes, this is Reverend Ashley. Um, it's always really hard when we lose somebody, especially someone as beloved as Mary, and she's been in this parish how long? How many years? Over 30? Do you know?
It's at least 25 because she's a founding member of Autumn
Yes,
Gospel.
I think she's been a member here almost
Yeah.
30. So a really long time. And so, when most people heard that she had died, it hit really hard for a lot of people. But what I want you to know, and the family shared this with me and it brought me comfort, is, so Mary passed away on a Monday morning. On Sunday, the day before, I had noticed that she wasn't at the early service and then she wasn't at the 10:30 service. And that's sort of unusual. I mean, Mary had been traveling a lot, but I knew she wasn't traveling that weekend. So I wondered what was going on and I tried to follow up with her that afternoon, but I did not get a hold of her. Turns out she had had a really bad day that Sunday. So she had been doing really quite well, or at least gave the appearance of doing well for a while and was, you know, checking things off of her bucket list, traveling, spending time with family. But then about a week before she passed, her pain levels increased. Her hospice care workers were giving her morphine to combat the pain. You knew there was a little bit of a downturn. But anyway, that Sunday she had a particularly difficult day. And so her daughters, said, well, we're going to continue to follow up with her. And what her daughter Catherine and she had arranged between them is if Catherine called on the phone, Mary was to always answer. Always, like even if she's in the shower, you got to answer because that's the signal between them. If you don't answer, we know something's wrong. So Monday morning, Catherine called and Mary didn't answer. And that's why she decided to go over and check. But, and here comes the good news, when she came in and found that Mary had passed, Mary was in bed with her pets on top of her, snuggling with her. She had a cup of coffee on the bedside table that was half full, still warm, and she had more coffee percolating on the stove. So I don't know, it just gives this idea that she probably woke up that morning, put coffee on, planned on getting a second cup, brought her cup back to bed with her, got in bed with her animals, maybe read a book or dozed off.
Dozed
and
away.
Dozed away peacefully in her sleep.
Wouldn't we all like to go?
Yes. So while it's so hard to lose a beloved friend, I think that it at least brings me comfort to know it does not appear that she passed under distress or maybe even pain, but with her beloved animals.
Oh, that just touched my heart. So with joy. Yeah, her Martin Luther King free at last.
Yeah.
And so we shared the passing of Mary McEntire on Monday, April 27th, 2026. And Ashley at the time wrote, and it went out to the entire congregation at the time. It is with a certain hope in the resurrection that we share the news of our beloved Mary McEntire, who was called home to be with God this morning. While we grieve the loss of a devoted friend and a faithful servant of Christ, we find peace and comfort knowing that she is now resting in the eternal presence of our Savior, walking in those green pastures. Mary's life was a beautiful testament to her faith. Her legacy of devotion, humor, and deep love of St. Luke's will continue to inspire all of us who were blessed to know her. And Suzanne's not here. I was going to ask her to open our meeting with a prayer, and I was hoping she could meditatively read to us what Ashley offered, Psalm 23. So would any of you like to read that meditatively?
Sure.
Here you go, sweetheart.
Mhm.
Let us pray.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen. It seems fitting that that psalm is so inclusive and reminds us of being the beloved lambs in the arms of the shepherd of our souls. We can begin simply by talking about the fact that why is this significant for Mary? Because as just mentioned, Mary is a founding member of this Autumn Gospel group, which is devoted to the spiritual growth of women in their second half of life. And we have been meeting, regularly, monthly, for about 25 years now?
Since January of 1998.
98. Well, I'm not gonna do the math on that, because I think it's longer than 25
Just a little
years.
over 20 years.
28 years.
Just 28 years.
Marvelous, marvelous. I'm glad we're correcting the record. And so I like to think of her as somebody who seasoned the conversations, the contacts, the concerns, and all the caring that has gone on among members of this group, even though I'm very much a newcomer in it. So I'm just going to invite any of you who wish to start. Actually, we're a small group, we can go at random, but Elizabeth, would you be willing to start, and then we simply go around the room?
Sure.
And please give us your name. I'm Jessica Hatch. I try to facilitate.
My name's Elizabeth Fetter. And I thought about what I'm going to say today. Because my experience at these kinds of events is, everybody says glowing, 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 glowing. And what I had to say wasn't glowing, 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 glowing. So I found myself in different situations with Mary where I thought what I would say in sentences, Mary would say in paragraphs and pages. And I'd be like, come on, Mary. That's it. Not that it wasn't important, but I was like, and then I had the second of two serious medical situations. And I ended up staying for almost 4 months in a long-term care facility in Murray called Promise Hospital. And Mary would regularly go to St. Mark's and do visitation. And afterwards, she would go to the Subway and get me a salad and come over and visit me. And I really appreciated that a lot.
Yeah.
There was, I don't think I even understood the concept of lay ministry until I was visited all those times by Mary. And the food at Promise, I cannot tell you how terrible it was. It's absolutely terrible. You know, so a Subway salad to me was a big deal. And so 1-to-1, I got to care about and love Mary in a way I hadn't when she was more speaking in settings like this. And so what I learned from that was, it changes everything. When the person is speaking in paragraphs and you want them to speak in sentences, it's like, oh, well, I love her and that's who she is. So that's what I learned from her.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Gail,
Well, I spoke in Beer and BS, but,
a little louder.
okay, I spoke in Beer and BS, but I actually thought about it. The first time I ever met Mary, it was when Harriet had been in a car accident. And it was a mother talking to a teacher and Harriet's needs. And you could just feel the love that she has for her family. And that was sort of my first introduction until I joined St. Luke's. And she just makes me smile because in Beer and BS, she could disagree with, you felt like she disagreed with everybody else in the room, but she would just state it. And she had this way of kind of going like this, and you knew that she was done. But you know what? She did it in such a way that everybody still loved her. And I don't know how she did that, because that's a very difficult thing to do. And she just made me smile in that respect. She was brilliant. When Mary spoke, everybody listened. And then one other time, Ashley asked me to do something that I felt was sort of out of my wheelhouse. And it scared me to death. But Mary also happened to be a part of that group. And she's a great teacher. Because I would panic and I'd get in touch with Mary. And she would be very methodical and just give me a couple little hints. And she didn't do it for me. She gave me some direction and said, you're going to be fine. Which I wanted more. But I was just really impressed with the way she handled that. She didn't take away my dignity, which I was pretty vulnerable. And so that was just another side of Mary that I fell in love with. Yeah.
And an addendum to this word, Gil was amazing.
Well, I need to apologize first because with my increasing concussion damage, I forget very fast, so I wrote mine out. So, we were neighbors in Pine Brook, ever since, while the moving truck was still in their driveway unloading their possessions from Texas. So she was right halfway between Claudia and me. We were just this direct line. as you look
When
at.
would that have been? What year do you remember? How long ago?
Oh, long,
Yeah.
long. Jim Jennings had a ponytail.
Oh.
I'd have to see this. So that's gotta be 76, 75.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But thinking about her as I tried to recall things, I remember her driving throughout Park City. She had a big old SUV, and in the winter months, it had this huge metal like cage on the top of it. It was always filled with sleeping bags and ski equipment, and the inside was packed with Jay and his friends, and they were off to some ski competition. And Mary would drive them faithfully to all of these things and all of the different weather. I think of her at the chapel when we were a very small but mighty group then. And there's always been such a loyal, heartfelt crew there. So I'm so glad that the legacy continues, and I wish I could be more of a physical part of it, but I am eyes on my TV. She never hesitated to advocate for her belief in the power of St. Luke's to do God's work in Park City and in the world. And she drove her little Subaru Outback, probably thousands of miles in Utah as a hospice chaplain, no matter what the weather was. She was delighted after she made the decision to transfer to hospice care to be assigned here to a very special social worker that she had helped train, a wonderful companion for her end of her journey. Her love for adventure took her down the Amazon River with dear friends, and memories of recent trips with family to South America and to Japan will live on in their hearts. Lisa and I visited Harriet at Mary's house this past week. Final discovery, Mary was a pack rat.
Did we not know that?
Not like it's been this week.
Oh.
How wonderful, and oh, how we will miss her. And I thought I had another page in here. One of the things here is out of the way. When she studied at Claremont University, and Salt Lake Divinity School, she studied and got her doctorate, all her skills not to be ordained as a priest, but to advocate as a lay minister. And that was so important to her and her devotion to the memory of Verna Dozier. So we paired up often over the years to lead our lay-led services at the chapel and inside the church and out in the parking lot. We had so much fun doing that. So those were just some of the things, such a long friendship, and in so many ways. We shared so many really can't come up with the right word, but for lack of a better one, intimate moments in each other's lives. Because I knew I could trust her with those, and she knew she could trust me. So yes, we will miss her, but she fought and now she can rest.
Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna skip. I'm at the end. Shelley?
Oh. Well, I have cliff notes, so I never forget anything. One of the things that I remembered when I brought the muffins, if you remember when we decided to come here after COVID shut us down, Mary made coffee, and back and forth she would go from the kitchen to here, just so that everybody would get what they wanted, and always brought us treats, and I thought that was pretty cool.
And thank you for offering.
Yeah.
Continuing the tradition.
Often she would invoke the name Lincoln Ure.
Yes.
He was so important in her life. Mary always was protective of and concerned for Claudia. She was right there with her from the time Claudia began her decline in vision. And when she had to move, that was really hard for Mary. Not that Mary ever said anything overtly about that, but you could just tell it hurt her tremendously. Verna Dozier, one of Mary's, I think the thing that was the most informative to me about Mary was her belief that the lay ministry was as important as the ordained clergy. I'm not sure that everybody would agree with that, but that was Mary's take, and she took that and ran with it. And those of us who have been around for a while will remember that the sentence that she continued to use was that doubt was not the absence of fear, but doubt was not the absence of faith, but fear was the absence of faith. And as I think about the last little while when she was dealing with medical issues, I'm not sure that she ever had any fear. I'm not sure she had any doubt that she knew where she was going and with whom she was going to go. I loved the fact that Mary, you knew where Mary stood. I loved her politics. And Gail was talking about she would have that little whatever. If you think about it, one of the things that I figured out about Mary was that she would get a chuckle if she was telling a story. And if it was anything that she thought may have been misinterpreted, she would give a chuckle at the end of it, but you knew exactly where she stood on any issue. And I love that about her. So that's the Mary that I know.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley.
Wendy?
Well, I'm Wendy Broadbent.
Oh, I'm Shelley.
I didn't, what?
I said, oh, I'm Shelley. I don't think I said that. Oh, okay.
I didn't know Mary for very long. I knew her through Autumn Gospel and Beer and BS. And I too am using my Cliff Notes from my sympathy card. But what I loved about Mary was her no-nonsense, direct approach to life. It resonated with me. I am a very direct and kind of no-nonsense person. I always knew where she stood on an issue. And I love that about her. It resonated with me. I could have frank, heart-to-heart conversations with her and know that I could trust her, even though we didn't have a long-term friendship. She was somebody who I could seek out and get an authentic answer or a conversation. And what really touched me with Mary was how she was willing to share courageously about her health and role model for me what it means to live in a Christian community. That's not something I do well. I had a life-threatening problem about a year ago, and I never told anybody at the church. My family knew. And I learned through that in part with Mary's role modeling and also Nancy, kind of finding out with Suzanne what had happened and brought the conversation to a head at Autumn Gospel. And it was very freeing. And as Mary was going through her challenges and was willing to openly talk about it, I just marveled at that. I thought it was so courageous and so grounded in her own spirituality. And I hope to have learned something from that I can carry forward. I appreciated her comments and suggestions in Autumn Gospel and Beer and BS. And I think everyone else captured kind of her mannerisms and her, her ways. You knew where you stood. But you knew that she was a faithful, well-read Episcopalian. And, outside of church, for me, there's nowhere else that I can really talk about my spirituality or grow. And Mary was very willing to share that. And I appreciated that about her. Her presence deepened. I think the conversation in the groups, and it also helped me deepen my spirituality. And I marvel at her clarity with lay ministry, because I think that's, at least for me, I don't have a call to be an ordained preacher, but lay ministry could be something that I could embrace more deeply, and in thinking about it, and she's kind of opened up that possibility. So I'm grateful, and I'll miss her. But I pray that the arms of God surround her and her family going forward, or during this time and going forward. So,
Thank you.
Wendy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're on,
Well, we're going around, but since we're going back to you.
but I mean, we're just backing up now, Suzanne.
Oh, I can't talk anymore about Mary. Every time I do, I burst into tears. You all already have heard me talk about her and how meaningful she was to me. I can't talk anymore.
It's all right, sweetheart.
You've already heard me talk.
All right.
All right.
I haven't.
Well,
And maybe her family has not. Would you?
Would you do it with Vera and Bia?
yes,
Would you?
it's on the recording.
Oh,
It's on the
oh, all right,
recording.
yeah.
It's on Vera.
We're not,
It's
we're
on
not
the
gonna push you
recording.
anyway.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
sweetheart. I'm
thank
just
you.
glad you're here.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, as you know, I'm an adult convert to the Episcopal Church. And not long after I converted, really it was probably a year and a half, 2 years after I started to feel what I now recognize as a call, but I didn't know it then. I just felt this sort of restless. I gotta do something. And I was kind of dipping my toe into everything at that time. And one of the things I did was I signed up for the Community of Hope. And that's where I met Anne. And that's where I met Mary in 2015. They were both there. And
And
community.
Anne Marie showed up later.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So Community of Hope is an organization that trains lay ministers in pastoral care. And then you go out as volunteers into the community to use those skills in hospital settings and other settings. So that was where I first sort of started to learn about that aspect of ministry. And I remember Mary well from those meetings because, well, she's very no nonsense and she's very practical. Like one of the things I thought was so cute about her is if she couldn't get get a hair appointment in the time frame she wanted, she would cut it herself. I loved that about her. She just like, I don't have time for this. I'm just gonna take care of it. And that to me was very, very Mary, you know. But yeah, she was always very intentional, very thoughtful about how she shared information. She was a great teacher in those settings. And it was through that I started to think, well, maybe I'm supposed to be a hospital chaplain, which I then, of course, did become prior to becoming a priest. But Mary was sort of there the whole time. Mary was very much like, she didn't really want me to become a priest. She wanted me to be a chaplain, and she was very, very invested in lay ministry. But she was cute. Eventually, when I said, I'm gonna do this, she was cute and she was supportive. But so much later, when I got to interview here and knew that I would maybe get to take this position, you know, it was fun for me to know I already knew Anne and I already knew Mary. And Reverend Charles had planned all these community events, like what was like the Jesus seminar events. Do you remember those? And I would go to those as a member of the diocese, and I would cross paths with Mary there. She was always very active in diocesan activities and roles. So I've known her a long time, and then to come here and become the rector of this place was a shift in our relationship. Not for the worse, certainly, but we had an opportunity to relate to each other in a new way. And she, probably because we did know each other, and also because she's just very, one thing I like about Mary is she's very sort of straightforwardly herself. There's no game playing, there's no deception. You know what she cares about and who she is. So she was always very vocal with me. If she didn't like a thing, I knew she didn't like that thing, because she would come in and she would talk to me at length about it. Or she would email me very long, and then we spent a lot of time working through a lot of things together. Appreciated that we had the kind of relationship where she would come directly to me and we could sit and talk about a thing. That was a gift to me. She didn't go through back channels. She came to me, and I valued that. And it wasn't all that either. You know, she'd read a book that she was excited about and she'd leave a little note, or she'd copy off an article from a magazine and she'd leave that for me. And I love those things about her. I thought she was a fun, wonderful person who really, I don't know another person like her. She was unique in some ways. Her personality is not one you see very often. So I was grateful to have the opportunity for my life to cross with hers. I was sad when I couldn't believe it, even though we knew it was coming. We didn't really plan.
How did that happen?
We know everyone.
Knew,
Yeah.
but it hit me like a brick. I
Yeah.
don't understand.
We knew, but we
I don't
also
get it.
thought, oh,
Not today.
not today.
Or now that,
Month,
yeah.
a year from now, but not today. We all, at least I think, thought we would have this summer.
Oh, it was such a shock.
And she did give the appearance, and this is probably part of her stoic nature, but she
Right.
did give the appearance of,
Yep.
you know, I'm actually doing fairly
Pretty
well.
Right.
So to decline over the course of a
Right.
week and pass
Yes,
a big shock
She
check.
did share how tired she was.
Yeah, and her
Bless
pain
her.
had.
But she had
increased.
just returned from a trip to
Mhm.
Costa Rica.
Yes.
Yeah.
And-
Anybody would have been
Yeah.
tired
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the thing about death, you know, and I would see this as a hospital chaplain, and Mary herself, I'm sure would see this, is that you can't prepare for it. You know, we think we can prepare, but you can't, because it's all, you never know when that moment will come, and when it does come, it will always hit. That's, you know, part of loving someone. When you
yes.
love someone and you have a genuine relationship with them, then you will always feel grief, no matter what.
I also think she was scary bright.
She was super bright,
I
very
didn't
smart.
I didn't know her story until I read the obit.
I didn't
Yeah.
either.
And my reaction was, well, that explains a
Me
lot.
too.
She's a very
Holy
intelligent,
cow.
very capable woman, and before we move on, so others can share theirs, I do want to just tell you, I went to her home to help Harriet, her daughter, sort of clear out some things and go, and you're right, she did save everything. I mean, she had every note she ever took in seminary in a box.
Oh, no.
So she saved everything, but it was wonderful also to walk through the environment and just see it as it was left, because you could see what was important to her, what books were close to the bed, which, you know, you could kind of get a sense, and almost all of the books she had, and she had a lot of them, were spiritual in nature, relating to her life of faith, and that was touching to me. But anyway, long story short, Harriet invited me to take the books that are liturgical books that I can use in worship planning, which that was very touching. The family said, well, we won't use these, so you can take them. I did. And one of them I would like to give to this group instead of keeping it, and it is Mary's prayer book.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think this is something that should go to one. If the family doesn't want it, I don't think it's something that should go to one person. I think you all loved her, and so we
Wow.
take this
We make it our book whenever
and-
we want to use something in it.
and you know, that's a way for her to
Nice. That's good.
hopefully remain present with you in some way.
That's wonderful.
How long was it that you knew Mary before you came here?
Well, I met her in 2015, so I came here in 2023.
13 years.
Don't get 3 years.
I know. Yes. I thought it's only been 3 years, but yeah, so I knew her from 2015 and.
She's been here for 3 years.
Sounds like
I've been here since June 2020. So, yeah.
Don is, as our textpert, would you like to, since you're in this part of the circle, is there anything that you would like to add that you didn't add before here in BS? You don't have to, but I just thought you are here and
Well,
a valued member ad hoc.
let me come around where.
Well,
people
can you get
see-
behind me?
Nope.
No.
Oh, I'm more right here.
Somebody shut the door.
Heard that, Kelly. I think it's interesting that Ashley mentions that she came in contact with Mary in 2015. Our search for a rector was just fraught with failure. For about 2.5 years. But I have to appreciate Mary being in contact with Ashley. And Ashley having contact with St. Luke's prior to ever dreaming of becoming a priest. Because I think it in a way prepared her for what God wanted her to do. And I'm telling you right now that God wanted Ashley to be our rector. The fact that Mary was a part of that, I didn't know that before, but Mary was almost like psychic. Because when we were looking for our new bishop, and we got Bishop Phyllis, she and I went down to St. James to a gathering where they had all of the bishop candidates speak to us. And Mary and I were sitting by each other because we were both electors for the bishop's election. And the first person got up, it was a man, and he spoke for about 10 minutes, and Mary and I looked at each other and we just shook our. He was scary.
No, gosh.
And then there was a lady that was from the diocese of something in Texas. I'm sure there are more dioceses in Texas than one. But she was good.
Sherry's nodding her head.
She was good. She was good. But then Bishop Phyllis got up and it was like
Click.
I did. And it was, I don't know how it was for everybody else there. I know how it was for Mary and me, but it was like tongues of flame were coming out of the sky. We can celebrate Pentecost tomorrow. It was like and we both looked at each other and almost simultaneously said, "She's our next bishop." But that was kind of the relationship that I had with Mary. We were just that way. But I will always remember Mary dearly, and I too appreciate her candor with me.
Thank you,
Don.
You have not been forgotten. Nancy, would you care to share?
I wasn't sure I could be there in person if emotionally, and so it's just as hard to be here emotionally. But I didn't plan. I just figured it would come to me, and it would come to me in large part from all the words that you said. There's little things that all of you have said that I just grin at and really agree, and some of them I have a little extra to add to, and then I'm just not sure where we're going to end up with this, but if you'll bear with me, just since Don talked about Phyllis, that was something I made a quick note about. I've been making notes as you guys have all talked. Oh yeah, I want to say that about Mary. But she was so discreet, of course, because being on the diocesan committee. But I remember her grinning and saying, "Oh, there's one who's really special." And we hope this is the one, and we think it will be, and all that. So I know how she felt about Bishop Phyllis. She was very excited about her. And I loved, Don, hearing your really colorful description about the way the process went. That was really neat. And Shelley, I appreciated because I'd made myself a note about saying something about how darn smart she was. She was wicked smart. And I remember I met Mary. I think, let's see, I've been at St. Luke's 32 years, and it seems like I saw maybe in the obituary, I think she was there maybe 35. Because she was in Park City before I got there. And she was very kind and she invited my husband and I to a couple of social things that they had at their home. So I had a chance, to get to know her early on that way. And then when I heard she was going to start seminary, I thought, well, what can I do for her? And so I really stressed because she's so smart, but I got her 2 or 3 books that I thought might add to something in her journey. I have no idea if they did, but it was a challenge trying to think what to get, for someone that smart. And then that makes me think of her, and just, I was going to say, having her invite us to social, she was a consummate hostess. She was incredible. Nobody's mentioned that particularly, but she's a wonderful cook. All those things she brought to Autumn Gospel were home baked, and she hosted our shepherding group kind of thing at one point, and just a wonderful hostess, Southern style, I guess. But Uh, oh, let's see. I'm trying to think how to flow through all of this, but I'm so glad that Ashley, that you got some books because, of course, she had a wonderful library of things. And I did see a note I believe you sent, or something came out about asking if there was anything in particular. And I didn't act on that. So I'm behind the curve and it's probably too late. But I'll never forget an autumn gospel meeting at Mary's house. And somebody, or she maybe, was the one that brought up the Enneagram. And I said, "What's that? Never heard of it." She walked in, left for a second, went and got a couple of books, brought them out to us, and shared a little bit of her knowledge of the Enneagram. And since then, I've now taken a couple of courses and I have a bunch more books. And I thought, oh, I would have loved to have had her Enneagram books. So if anybody happens to be around helping them clear off books, that's always a challenge for families, but I would love to have one of Mary's Enneagram books. Um, and I appreciate a couple of you mentioned Lincoln Ure and Verna Dozier, because they were very precious to her. And I loved the time she would bring them, reference them, and all of that. I made a note of a story I remembered in her hospice chaplaincy that she told a couple of times, and I thought it was just so funny. And she was telling about a woman she was counseling, or, being a hospice chaplain for, and the woman had asked her what she was. And I think the woman was maybe LDS. I don't know that for sure. But Mary said, she asked what Mary was, and Mary said, "Well, I'm an Episcopalian." And she said, "Oh, I used to be an Episcopalian." She said, "But they were always telling me I had to think too much." And it just cracked up Mary to share that story. Anyway, oh, let's see. What else did I make notes of about things that you said? And Elizabeth, I'm so appreciative. I remember your time you went through so much. And to hear, I think I knew, but I didn't really know the extent of how much Mary came in bringing you the salad. That was just classic, because she was very unassuming and humble about it, but she did it, and she just did it consistently. I mean, I loved you told that story. Um, and, I'm not, Mary was so much a part of the chapel group, of course, and then the breakfast group that Anne talked about that eventually kind of dwindled because people moved or died or whatever. And so when Claudia moved, like you said, it was kind of a hard thing for her. And then Anne had moved to Heber. And so it was like their breakfast group was gone. And when I heard that Mary had cancer, this is a couple of years ago, and knew the extent and knew the type, because that's what I did in my work. I just thought, and she's lost all these good friends being here daily. So I started calling her and saying, "Would you like to go to the Pioneer Theater with me?" And it turns out she loved the Pioneer Theater. So we had a really nice time over the last few years, going to the Pioneer. And she didn't like the musicals as much. That was her thing about church. She liked the chapel because she didn't have to suffer through music or try and sing. And she appreciated it, but it just kind of, wasn't her thing. But anyway, we did a lot of that. And then, so what I guess I'm trying to say is, in the last few years, Mary and I got to be better friends and shared a lot of things and her plans and that kind of thing. And when she got back, she went on two trips. One was to Costa Rica to see her daughter Harriet. And then she was home, I think, just a little over a week, and turned around and went to Japan, which is where Jay's family had wanted to go. And Catherine was a real saint and went with her on both of those trips and made sure everything went smoothly. I credit her and thank her for doing that. And so Mary had a chance to do both those trips. And so when she got back, we were talking on the phone, and I had gotten something for her. And she said, "Well, I'm going to come down and get it." And I said, "Well, I can bring it, you know." And she said, "No, no." She said, "As long as I can still drive, I want to drive down." And she hadn't seen my new condo. So I said, "Well, come on down." So she drove down, and we spent literally 2 hours. And I got to hear the whole story of both trips. And I'm kind of sick now. I didn't record it or take notes because I was really trying to remember things, from it. But it was so wonderful to hear, all of it when it was fresh in her mind. And there's one part of it, and I remember this because I said to her after she was done telling me, I said, "Oh, Mary, you have created a fabulous memory for your family." And both trips were creating a memory. But this one particular incident she told me, and Anne, you'll probably have to fill me in here because I'm not as well versed on Mary's family. But this was is it Jay's grandson? And I'm blanking on his name, the young child who's like 6.
I don't know the name, but it would be Jay's son.
It's Jay's son. Okay, yeah, what did I say? Grandson. Anyway, hers. But a young child. And he was on this trip to Japan. And Mary told me about the various days, what they did. And this one day, apparently all the adults, wanted to go off to some tour thing to see. And it was a little too much for Mary and for this child. And I apologize, I can't remember his name. But anyway, she told me in detail what the two of them did. And she took him up, it sounded like a lot of moving about, frankly. I was kind of shocked. And she took him to this one place and they saw this and that. And then, like a lot of children, he saw something that wasn't on the tour, that was important to him. And he made note of it. And she stayed with that child the whole day and they spent it together, just the two of them. And I was in awe that she would have the strength and the everything that it took to be with a child for a day and keep that child entertained and probably teach him things. And I just said, "Mary, you have created a memory for that child. He's awfully young. He may not remember a lot, but he's going to remember his grandmother in Japan and what they did together." And I hope maybe they'll capture that in some written story. I wish I had written it or recorded it for the family to have that. Um,
Maybe, maybe there's some way that they can hear this Mary's comments that her, Jay and his family,
yeah.
what Mary's, what Nancy.
Yeah, and maybe they can kind of capture it before it's too long gone because
Well,
Yeah.
it
that,
it was just a precious story, of her, and I just imagining her doing that. And it was a busy day. They spent the whole day, just the two of them together. Um,
to that point, after I get this up onto YouTube, I'll send the link for it to Ashley and Pam. And they'll get it to the family so that they can watch this.
and anyway, I guess, Mary and I shared some interest in some, I don't know what the word is, but anyway, uh, in what would happen in terms of St. Luke's, in terms of the chapel, in terms of, some other things that were very important to her, like she really wanted to see a labyrinth done before Claudia passed. And she said, and maybe before I do, so she was working very hard on that, presenting things. And, it was in play. And when I heard she went into hospice, I thought, oh, I got to do anything I can to help her. So we were in communication, and I'm just as shocked as the rest of you, or maybe even more so, because I had a very lengthy text message from her on the Wednesday, Thursday before she passed, and I was leaving town on Thursday. And so we had this long exchange, and she was telling me, various things that were going on, and we were and I said, "I'll be back, on Monday, let's talk and just process it some more and see, where to go from here," kind of a thing. And of course, that was the Monday she died. So I was just as shocked. And I actually was in a radiation appointment that morning, and I got a call from Ashley. She left me a nice voice message and said, please give me a call. And, didn't startle me or scare me or worry me, But so as soon as I got out of my appointment, I was waiting for the valet to bring my car. And I called Ashley, and she was probably on other calls because she had a lot of people to talk to that morning and a lot going on. So I missed Ashley. But then I got a call right then as I'm waiting still for the car from Linda Lux, and she told me what happened. And the thing that I remember is what hit me like a ton of bricks as I stood there in the middle of Huntsman and looked up, and I just imagined Mary. We all have our vision of what it's like. We hear the stories of people that have passed and come back, and what they say about the light. And, we've all read books and things. And I just had this overwhelming vision of Mary, out of pain or any grief or anything worrisome, and standing in that light. And I don't know how to end this, but it's it's impacting me pretty hard, I'll have to say. So I don't know if I've gotten through anything that shares anything of use for her family or anybody else, but Mary was a very special person to all of us in different ways, and a very special person to St. Luke's, and gave and gave and gave through all the years to all her people. And I can only imagine what her clients as a hospice chaplain, I guess they're gone because they were in hospice, but I can imagine what their families thought about what Mary did for them. So I better end on that because I'm having a hard time going any farther. So sorry.
Nancy, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank
sharing
you.
your light. Thank you.
And before Sherry goes, Sherry, I want to hear your comments. I promise I'll go back and watch the recording. Now is the time I'm going to have to leave. And before I leave, I just want to say, if any of you, I know that this hits hard, and if any of you want to sit down at any time for a private conversation, I'm available to you. So please just let me know. Okay.
Thank you.
Sit down and process
Thank you for
together.
coming.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm getting out of your way,
Oh.
Sherry. All you.
Good luck today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, pray for Adeline.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that was hard to follow.
Well, I'm glad you are, because I got a little wound up, Sherry. So please, please take us out on a.
Had to
Oh.
pause for a minute. Can we just pause and let Gail come back to the conversation?
Sure, sure,
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
sure.
Take a break.
Hey, I'll have to say it cracked me up when Ashley brought that prayer book out and gave it to Autumn Gospel, and the thought of that being our text, our source, that started me going. That's probably why I got so emotional.
I agree, but I also want to interject. This is just a personal aside. Talking about music and services, I would say to Mary something, or she and I would counter each other after when the chapel moved to the main campus. And I'd say, don't you want to come to service at 10:30? She said, music's a waste of time. No offense, she'd say. No, that's a waste of time.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Classic, that's perfect. I just, 'cause she didn't want me to be insulted, but that was Mary. She did not.
Wasted time.
She did not suffer fools. She will tell you exactly what she thought at that moment.
Yeah.
That was what I was.
That's a good one.
I knew she loved me, but she didn't give a damn about the music. Oh, my
I
goodness.
had another thought about Mary. Just real quick, over the last few years, I had to have two really major surgeries, one following the accident, and then the other was for a rough cold. And first, it was very difficult for me to come out of an anesthetic. I'd had no previous concern about it. I'd had other surgeries. But I went bonkers, and I would think if they moved the bed or jiggled it, I thought they were pushing me into a closet and no one would ever find me, and all of these bizarre things. And Mary was there keeping Lisa company. as I went through all these gyrations. It just, it's all right, Ann, you know, we'll be right here with you. So,
Wonderful comfort. Well, Gail's back, so.
Sorry.
No, gotta go, we have to take care of business. Sherry.
Well, it's hard to bring that to a conclusion, but in the time that I have known Mary, almost exclusively through our discussions at Autumn Gospel, I always admired all of those traits you've already discussed, her capacity for reading on and on with the books, her theological expertise, and yes, her direct, unassuming approach to things, and perhaps most of all, her radiant compassion. This last weekend, Perry and I attended the graduation of our oldest granddaughter, Lida, at Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. And it was there, while immersed in the Ivy Day ceremonies, that I got the email and read Mary's tribute, her obituary. And all of a sudden, I had a rather intense moment of connection, because Mary was a Smithy. She was a Smith alum. And these Ivy League ceremonies are very impactful to begin with. And as I listened, the 2 days of speeches and dissertation titles, the various ceremonial traditional events, the Smith values were on display through all of that. The values were equity, in access, power, and voice, diversity, belonging, inclusivity, and community. And that's when it hit me that the values seem to have been woven in the fabric of Mary's everyday existence. All of those things just came powerfully to me. I thought, that is Mary. And one of the things that someone said is that Smith educates women of, I think they used the word of promise, to be women of distinction and purpose. And I thought to myself, do they know Mary? I mean, Mary did that, did she not? Mary is, I think, alum that Smith College can be very proud of, and so are we.
I bet she was there with you. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. That's a perfect summation. That's wonderful, Sherry. I love that.
It may be a wonderful summation, but I would be remiss if I didn't share with you.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'm sorry.
I forgot. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. Lindsay Bloomfield has asked me to share what she would have said had she been here. Okay. And so I feel like I have an obligation for this. Okay. And then maybe we can do some more commenting. Lindsay writes, Mary was a close friend of mine. She occasionally asked me to join her for movies and offered books for me to read. I was always so interested by her vast knowledge of the Bible, religion, politics, history, international relations, and much more. But mostly I loved her courageous sense of humor and sharp wit. Even when she offered her knowledgeable point of view, she would also complement it with a few words that made everyone laugh. She was an active participant in Beer and BS and Autumn Gospel conversations, as I enjoyed being, and she always contributed valuable insights and comments. We will miss her immensely, and I look forward to the June 6th meeting when we can share other thoughts and memories about this outstanding woman. And I would also like to add something that Sherry sort of leaned into, because she talked about alumni. And one of the things that Sherry wrote when we were first doing that, before we decided we'd all do a thing, was a YouTube, was that, and it reminds me also of Autumn Gospel, is the fact of doing things together. And I think this has something to do with Mary being a smithy and what you were also hinting at, Sherry. But she quotes an Episcopal priest in Alabama, and Sherry's context was that she was reading a day-by-day passage that this priest had written, and it reminded her of Autumn Gospel. And the person whom Sherry quoted says, as we worked together in her ministry team, she realized my team was doing something far more than profound than breaking the ice. I think we can clearly say that we're doing something much more profound than breaking any ice here today. We were walking alongside one another in faith. We encouraged one another to stay strong and suggested ways the Spirit might be seeking to guide our individual ministries, our ministry together, and maybe the way we do our ministries. Does that cover it? Does that include you, Sherry,
Sure.
in what you said?
No, that's right. I think it's, I read forward day by day, perhaps all of you do every morning, but this one passage, when I read it that day, this was before we knew of Mary's passing. But I thought this, or right in the midst of it, I thought that really describes our group. That is what we do together. She was saying that she met with some group, I think once a week, and they always opened with, what joy did you experience this week? Or what is difficult for you as we move throughout this period. They opened it with something to be an icebreaker, I guess, you see, to be a stimulating question. But then she thought about it and she thought, but what we were actually doing, those questions, was just that, was walking beside each other in faith and leading each other, helping one another. Just sounded like us.
Thank you. Is there any other residual sharing that you'd like to do or discuss?
Have you shared everything you want?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I had some interesting comment, and thank you, Nancy, for what you said. You may have been maybe Ashley or maybe Linda Lux, but you may have been one of the last persons to have a conversation with Mary. I exchanged an email with her a few days earlier, and the occasion was Mary wrote to all of you sharing her response to our autumn gospel meeting in March, how she liked the minutes, etc. But she also shared a few other things that Nancy you talked about in more specifically. But she talks about the labyrinth. Don't forget about the labyrinth that's coming up and everything that she was organizing. And she talks about starting the meditative walk of the labyrinth at 1 o'clock. And she writes, and she wrote to all of you, you've already read it. I am enjoying my own Monday, March 30th, okay? Just weeks before she passed. I am enjoying my own meditative experience now, watching the pink rays of sunrise over the Pacific Ocean at Guanacaste. And Harriet and the others sorry, I'm getting very old. I am enjoying my own meditative experience now, watching the pink rays of sunrise over the Pacific Ocean at Guanacaste Beach in Costa Rica, enjoying the company of my 3 daughters, 2 biological, Catherine and Harriet, and the other is my AFS daughter, her foreign exchange student, daughter from 30 years ago, who flew up from Argentina, and my 2 granddaughters. As they say here, pura vida. And that can mean everything from hello to goodbye to a philosophy of living a peaceful, simple, and appreciative life. Hey, I looked it up. Can't wait to read Theo of Golden. And she signs it Mary McEntire. Well, I couldn't let that I was so delighted, with even knowing that much detail about her visit. I couldn't help but repeat or reply. And I wound up getting kind of into a conversation with her, and I just offer this as maybe a final reflection, because I was trying to speak directly to her. I thank her for her reply to the AG meeting. And then I also add, and thank you, Mary, for your delightful description about your visit with your family and the beautiful setting. Recently, as part of reading through book suggestions that you made, I read Insane for the Light by Ronald Roheiser. I found it to be a compelling read. His thesis about our waning years got to me. Living out, he writes, living out those years in such a way that our life, including our deaths, become gifts to those we leave behind, and leaving them as gifts to the world. That all our loving, my writing, that all our loving, all our reconciliation, all the ways we take our leave become gifts that enrich the lives of the living in ways that we cannot know. I shared this idea with one of our sisters, who paused and then asked me, "How does Mary do it?" The question rang so real, so true to me, because with others we have watched Mary and we have listened, largely in silence, as you have, whether you know it or not, guided us through your own courage, your grief, your moments of grim humor. Everything has an expiration date. And your decisive planning to witness a how and a hope for our own dates, our own legacies. We owe you gratitude. I pray your family receives the gifts that you have brought, the fruits of your care and loving, with joy through the tears, and your visit is rich with story and promise, and at your leave taking, your presence is etched in their hearts. Sending love toward Easter, Mary, Jessica.
Wow.
And so I offer that as a possible summation to the sharing. And if we need to do any other sharing, let's do that before we close with
What a
prayer.
gift you gave her.
Yeah, well,
Just to clarify, Jessica, that was your note back to her when she was describing, and you wrote that long piece you just read us. That was so beautiful.
I think the
Wow.
book really got to me, what that meant to her and what that meant to the family,
Mhm.
to know that was it. That was it for them. And that was it for her.
Nancy, can I ask you a question? Do you know to what extent Mary was responsible for her own arrangements for whatever planning she had done for the inevitable end? We hear about what we need, what all of us should do, particularly to save our family from having to make decisions that they may not be comfortable with. To what extent do you know that Mary did that?
I don't exactly, and I have to say, I don't know how the rest of you, but it's hit me very hard about Mary because it strikes at all our mortality. I mean, Autumn Gospel, we started when we were all over 50, and now we're, in the 70s and late 70s and 80s, and I don't know what else, but we're getting there. And uh, and so yeah, and that's actually my big problem right now is how do you come up with plans to make things easier on your family? I mean, that's something I'm dealing with. Now, as far as Mary, I know she's very much a planner. Um, and she had talked to me at great length about her, what she wanted to do for St. Luke's in her will and how she was going to structure it. And we had a number of conversations around that and about her house and all of this. But she never talked about personal things because I don't know if I should say this, but she just said, well, kids today, they don't want these old antiques that have been in the family forever. So she said they won't want anything, you know. And so I don't know what she did, but she certainly, being a hospice chaplain, she's got to be more attuned to this issue than most people, let's face it, right? And so I don't know what she did, but I think we were all shocked because I think even she thought she had a few more months, you know. It was startling. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer you, Shelley.
Say for herself on hospice.
When Lisa and I were there last week, and we were walking through the house um, and interestingly enough, because they were doing the memo about the books, and I was overwhelmed with the books that went from a shelf this high all the way up to the ceiling and packed. But I did choose one on the Enneagram, and I would love to give that to you.
No, you chose it. You should keep it. There's probably others.
I don't know what that
Yeah,
is.
well, let me just finish this other thought first, and then the, it was very interesting going through the house because there were little Post-it notes everywhere that showed, either what Mary wanted a specific person to have or what each person would like to have. Like, a little child set by her fireplace, and Harriet was gonna take that home for her girls, and there were things that had their initials, so that when they'd see everything there and knew what they had to work out together, I think they were well prepared.
That's excellent. Mary didn't mention that she'd done that, and a lot of people do. I hear stories, but I'm very appreciative because,
I'm sure she at least laid the groundwork. They may have
yeah,
found that as a system that works for them right now, but
yeah,
they
yeah.
were working through all of that. It seemed very well.
That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. Because none of us know where we are, or when it comes, how do you, I always say I'm not worried about dying. I got that all figured out. I'm just worried about what am I going to do with all this stuff and my poor family. I got to leave them some better instructions. So I need a little more time.
I'm lucky. I've done that now.
Yeah, you are. You're the one that's so good at it.
I have 3 rooms that confirmed what was most important.
You are.
3 rooms, but it was, so I'm lucky is done.
You're gonna tell us about an Enneagram.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to go, so maybe I should.
I can't come up with it right now. I'm having real trouble with brain issues increasing, so
We can look it
I
up on
can't
the
tell you.
Yeah.
Nancy, what's an Enneagram?
The Enneagram is very ancient. Elizabeth, you go ahead and sneak on out because you need to go. The the Enneagram is a very ancient, and I don't know that I know the history very well, but um,
Thanks.
it's a system that puts into perspective 9 different classes of basic ways people operate. And it doesn't mean that that's the only way a person is, but they would have features of one of those 9 or several. You can be kind of parts of any of those. And there's an actual test, there's an organization that gives it too. And you can answer 100 and something questions, and it will rank you as this or this or this, which on the point on the Enneagram is what they call it. And when I first heard about it, because I have a mental health background, I thought, oh, I don't know if I like this. It's kind of typing people. But it isn't that at all. And I should be better capable at saying this, but there are people that talk about the Enneagram in terms of spirituality more and more and more. And it kind of helps you understand, oh, that's where I'm coming from. My basic go-to default position is fear or is I can't think of some of the others that would be obvious, to you. But anyway, it's a lot of people have said it's very useful to them in their spirituality to kind of look at where they come from, and that kind of helps them say, "Oh, okay, well that makes some sense now. Why I react this way or that way or whatever," and it helps you kind of analyze
I wonder where,
There's a better description for it, I'm sure, than that. Richard Rohr wrote a very good book about it. I read that one at one point, and I have a new book from the team that I've studied for the last several years with this group from London, and he just finished writing a book. He's from A Course in Miracles perspective, and he wrote a book on the Enneagram, and I have a copy of that.
I wonder, Jessica, not for today's discussion,
We can do it.
but if we should look into a book, maybe Nancy, you'd help us. And that would be a connection to Mary also, of something that was important to her and something that might be, of spiritual value. to us.
Enneagrams are fun. If you've done Myers-Briggs,
Right.
Yeah.
then Enneagram opens that up
Yeah,
in a way that you're saying, oh, now I get myself, and now I really how I come across to other people. But I also have this wing that also helps me control, let's say, my 8.
yeah.
I get a 4 wing because I'm, whatever. So it gives you a different insight from a different perspective about yourself.
Might be
We can do
fun.
it. There are all kinds of materials out.
Yeah, we can talk about
Thank
it
you,
on another occasion, but thank you, Nancy, and also to Mary, because I think
Yeah.
it was because of Mary that this.
I wish I'd asked her for her explanation of it. That would have been the best question. What do you think, Mary?
Well, what she would have recommended,
Yeah. A ton of books.
yeah.
But I like the idea that there's some from different perspectives. And I think we'd probably want to pick one. Maybe Roar's book would be,
thinking Roar
Yeah.
writes so well.
well, we'll find out.
This is an older book. There's a few new.
Had an experience with his most recent book, remember?
Oh,
And it was, anyway, but
yeah,
I,
Right.
okay, do we have any other sharing about Mary's life that we care to do? We have about 4 minutes.
We've kept the family almost an hour and a half.
Donna, I want to thank you again
Yeah.
for supporting
Thank
this
you.
for us, because we could not
Yes.
do this ourselves. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
so it's gonna be on YouTube?
yeah, I'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah, I thought we started at 10:30.
You're confusing church.
Well, I got here 10:30.
You want to do a closing prayer?
Sure.
Oh, please.
You're in the group now.
Like it or not,
Like it or not.
get some intentions up front. Or what shall we pray as a result of our meeting this morning?
For Thanksgiving for Mary's life among us.
Gratitude for all of us and Mary's.
The joy of knowing Mary.
Being in community.
Yes.
For the technology that allows us to have Nancy and Sherry with us.
Yes.
Yes, and also Mary's family. May this be a blessing to them. That we shared our lives with Mary.
Amen.
Amen.
And the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Good to see you, ladies.
Bye, everyone. See you in a month.
Take care of yourself.
Sherry, are you gonna try to drive up or are you gonna fly?
I think I'm gonna transport my car and we'll fly, and it'll be likely
cool.
the 3rd or 4th week of June. So I hope to be in present for the next one.